All right, welcome back to the Birds of a Feather show with Alan Bondar, aka the Unraveler, and my co-host Dustin Curley, who shall appear here momentarily. As okay, all right. Today I am actually going. We got some music going on, everything. Okay, all right. So me and Dustin Sun are going to be doing a show together today on Cobra Kai. And so Dustin's son, what do you have for life lessons for us from the wonderful Cobra Kai show? Because that is what this show is about.
Men who dissect show know everything. Yeah, no. Um, I'm excited for this, dude. I just so y'all know, Alan said we should wear headbands, and I was like, no, that is the dumbest idea. We're not going to do that. And then I decided today to rip up a sheet and turn it into a headband. Did you know Target does not sell headbands or bandanas?
No, I didn't know that,
Yeah, pretty interesting, man.
but I know that I could have got the legit Miyagi-Do bandana for $5 from Amazon.
Could you have? Oh, man, I'm sorry.
That's all right, bro. We had it, man. But that's all right. That's all right. Dustin, son, you are here
Yeah,
and you are present, and that's all that matters.
that's
So
right.
we're going to, hey, listen, Dustin, if there's anything I've ever taught you before, walk left side, safe. Walk right side, safe. Walk middle, squish, just like grape.
Look, if you guys aren't Cobra Kai fans, just turn the show off right now because this whole show is going to annoy you. Because we are going to do nothing but talk about Cobra Kai, which is unequivocally, objectively, scientifically proven to be the best show that has ever come out.
I couldn't agree more. And that's two of us saying this objectively, man. So there's nothing
Well,
about it.
where two or more are gathered together.
And there is lesson number one, or number two, I guess. Lesson
Yeah,
number two.
yeah. No, all right. So Alan and I were talking about some of the parallels between Cobra Kai and the idea or institution of religion and um, indoctrination and religious thinking. And there's a ton of them. Well, at least maybe two crazy people like me and Alan can see a ton of them. Maybe there's none, but
Well,
we're going to pretend there are.
yeah, well, okay, so where Dustin and I got this idea, because I mean we both come out of Christian backgrounds, and it used to be that anytime there would be a great movie or a show that would come out, lo and behold, we would find all of the biblical connections and find all of the redemptive qualities of that and make life lessons out of it for our teens or for our church. So, being used to that and accustomed to that kind of thing, we're like, hey, let's do that with Cobra Kai, except, we don't have to be biblical principles, but real life principles, because this was cool for us, man. I learned so much from this show. I just freaking loved it. I
Yeah,
loved it, dude.
it's so great. It really
It's
was.
so
So
great.
great. And if if you grew up with Karate Kid at all, especially one and two, the rest of them, but one and two especially, if you grew up with them, then you will love Cobra Kai. How Daniel and Johnny look like they do, they're drinking the blood of babies or something because those two dudes look like almost the same. It's
Dude, no,
and Elizabeth Shue, bro.
bro, whatever, man. Childhood crush all over again when she came back on. I was like,
Uh,
what?
yeah, golly. Oh, and Yumike.
Yeah, she was still pretty too, no doubt.
Man, that's just crazy. But
Yeah.
anyway, what do we mean by parallels? Okay, so look, I found it really interesting, and I found it interesting that I sided with this thinking at first. So Johnny starts Cobra Kai and Daniel's just in a huff, right? And rightfully so. Cobra Kai's bad. Cobra Kai bad, Miyagi-Do good. And it was interesting to me to see the power of indoctrination through the thinking that Miyagi-Do was the only way. There was no other way to think about approaching the martial arts and that form of self-discipline until you start realizing that Miyagi-Do isn't going to cut it. And it took a new generation of thinkers to come in and wake Daniel and Johnny up to the fact that it wasn't one or the other, but kind of an amalgamation of all of it.
Yes, agreed. And when you say the indoctrination, I find it fascinating. Now that you mention that, I'm thinking, Miyagi always used to talk about balance, and balance was so important, and yet he only taught one side of the balance.
Yep,
It's fascinating because he indoctrinated Daniel to think that his way was the only way to have balance, when in fact Daniel only had half of what it took to have balance.
he did. And even though Kreese, who is the Cobra Kai's original and the original Karate Kid, even though Kreese as an instructor was not good, Kreese's martial art was not bad. And
Right.
and had Kreese been balanced, then maybe Miyagi would have seen the two being one back then.
Yeah. It actually made me so sad. I mean, that scene with Johnny and Kreese at the end, that final,
Bro.
bro, I'm sorry, I cried like a baby.
Yep.
It was so powerful. But when I thought to myself after that scene, I was just like, oh my goodness, if only Kreese and Miyagi could have connected when he was here at this point. Like,
Man.
that would have been a powerhouse, eh?
Yep.
Man, that'd been something.
Yeah. So that was one of the big things for me. And it was in the middle of the first season. I found myself just, I mean, even though I love Johnny as a character, you know, put some of those hash browns on it and send it to the internet. I mean, dude, I cracked up so hard on that scene. But even though I liked Johnny, I was completely anti Cobra Kai. I really was. There was just, Miyagi-Do was the only way, and you need to get a bonsai tree and cut the bonsai
Yep,
tree and
yep,
screw, strike hard, strike first. I was just so anti Cobra Kai, not realizing I was being what I disdained.
yep, yep. Dude, you're making such an incredible point of a journey that the mind takes if you just allow it to allow these things to open your mind. Like, and now I'm seeing, these parallels to our journey from Christianity to atheism, just realizing that at the beginning you think you have it all and you think you know it, and this other side that seems evil, and I would never go there. You come to discover it's not actually so evil when you actually see what its intentions are. And sometimes their intentions aren't always good, as we know from the Cobra Kai guys, as
But whose are?
Priest and Silver, right? But who's are? But I mean, they were extreme. But in comes Johnny, and he redeems it, and he makes it something really amazing. And it took him time, and it took Daniel time, and eventually they found a way to meet in the middle, I suppose. But ultimately, to your point on this particular point you're making, yes, that journey from this is just evil to seeing what it is and saying, huh, that's fascinating. There's something really amazing here. Good connection. That was good. I like that.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of them. I don't know what was something you saw.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so Miguel, when he got injured during that fight,
One of my favorite characters. I love Miguel's character.
so do I. He's such a good-hearted kid. I mean, wow, dude, what an amazing kid. Loved his character. I love Robbie too, but they both had to take their different journeys. And Robbie comes around at the end, but Miguel just man, always had good advice, always seemed to care about the right thing. Then, he gets injured and he's practically paralyzed. And Johnny just will not let him off the hook, and he pushes him, and resilience is key. And I mean, I don't get me wrong, I agree with you. Like the scenes where he's pushing are freaking hilarious. The way he does it. Oh my God.
Oh man.
Even the porn magazine and everything. Holy,
Yes, yes.
oh my God. It's so ridiculous. The stupid shit he had to do. But bro, man, at the end of it, Miguel ends up thriving and he gets his legs back and he becomes like well, the best fighter in the world, supposedly, minus Johnny, obviously, but he's in the kids range. Um, but yeah, dude, just the resilience, never quit, never quit, never quit. It reminds me of that old book. I forget who wrote it. It might have been Nelson Searcy when I was a church planner. The book was called um, Never, Ever, 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 Almost Never Quit. So it was sometimes you just gotta know what it is, but don't ever quit until that moment. And Miguel just didn't. He just kept pushing, and that's a good theme that we learned throughout the entire Cobra Kai series is resilience. You never quit. And they just kept pushing. So that one for me was awesome to see that bounce back.
Yeah.
People, especially okay. So if I were to parallel that to our journey and leaving Christianity, one of the things that happens is you feel distraught, you just downtrodden. Like, well, great. What am I going to do now with my life? Everything I've ever done was invested in Christianity and God, and I don't have anything else. My education, my degree, my experience, everything. So what now? And I could have just given up and just died. And a lot of people want to feel that way. And my encouragement is, one of the themes we learn from this is don't quit. There is a bounce back. You can learn from it. And look at us. We're actually making a difference, I feel like, in the world today from the other
Yeah.
perspective.
Well, we are. Yeah, we are. And the other thing that's interesting in the vein of what you just said is watching Daniel wrestle with letting go of his ideas about Miyagi-Do. In fact, when he finds out, I don't want to spoil it, but when he finds out about Mr. Miyagi in the last season, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but when he finds out about that, about what happens with Mr. Miyagi and what Mr. Miyagi does, and then they CGI Mr. Miyagi into that dream, which was totally ghetto.
Oh,
But
dude, I don't know. I was like, yeah, I thought I
it
was.
was great. I mean, it was cool, and it was very reminiscent of the first Karate Kid. But that scene, you can see Daniel. I mean, bro, that inner battle of realizing something is not right,
Hmm.
and maybe he does not have it right like he thought he did, and he comes to terms with it, and all of a sudden there's this letting go moment. And then in the next episode, that scene between he and Johnny where he acknowledges to Johnny, you were right. Bro, that journey of watching Daniel, because dude, Daniel was just like Mr. Miyagi this, Mr. Miyagi's way, the defense only. It was this is the only right way. And okay, I'll give Johnny a little bit of credence, and what, but he just fought it and fought it, and everyone else saw it before he did.
Yep. And interestingly enough, if you recall, Johnny had the same
Oh
experience.
yeah,
You remember it was when Daniel was captured at season, I think it was last season,
five,
or it might have been
season five,
five.
yeah.
And I remember when and he disappeared for a while, and they were about to start the show, and Johnny realized, what I don't know how to do this without Daniel. And
Yep.
he called and left that voicemail. It was really powerful.
Oh, that's right.
Also a really emotional moment for me. I actually teared up. I was like, wow. So Johnny, the tough guy, never bowed to anybody, found himself saying, man, I miss you. I need you. And I was just like, what? So they both had moments like that. It was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Wow, dude. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty powerful, man.
So, I
See,
mean,
guys, whoever has not seen this series, look what you're missing out on.
yeah, no doubt. It takes you on a huge roller coaster. I mean, there's so much emotion in this laughter, crying, serious moments. Like it just redemptive moments, even like love moments, brotherly love moments. It's just like, dude, it was all there. It was just
Yeah.
hands down, like probably the best series I've ever had. But and that's probably because I just love the Karate Kid. So for me, it was just a no brainer. And it's just I, nobody was interrupting me during that time.
Yeah. Oh, well, you saw me, man. We went to Target, we got snacks, and then we came back and we sat down, and and we binged the whole thing in one day.
Nice. Yeah, I typically do that. Yeah, I had to have some fights around here to get people off my back to be able to watch this, but yeah, because I don't have the fans in my house that you do. They don't care
Yeah.
about karate. I'm trying. Just they don't. I don't know. They just don't have the.
Well, and my wife is she's a submissive wife. She knows her place in the Christian home. So, you know, I'm the head, just like Christ is the head. So she submits to my authority.
Ray knows her place too. She's like, no, I'm good. See ya.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Yeah. I can't believe she does not like Cobra Kai, dude.
I don't get it.
I,
I do not. All right, so here's the thing. So I'll pop on episodes here and there, as I'm binge watching, and she'll sit there and she'll watch. She'll be like, "Ooh, that was really good." I'm like, "Yeah, it's really good. They're all really good." I don't know. I was bored before. I was like, "You didn't pay attention. That's why you were bored. If you're walking around not focused, of course you're gonna be bored. This is the kind of show you got to hang on every word. Like,
yeah.
dude, like every little thing they say matters. Like, this is such good writing.
Yeah.
They're not wasting space. It's just all so
So
good.
good, man. Yep.
So
Uh,
one of the things that I found really fascinating about the show is the way they coherently connected all of the elements from the Karate Kid series throughout Cobra Kai. Like, oh my goodness, like just little things, like even the fly scene at the very, very end, they just
yeah, dude.
it was like after everything they tied together, it was almost like, oh, we need this one last one to wrap. And you have Daniel catching the fly just like you did in your Karate Kid 1. And then Johnny's the one who
Yep.
catches and kills it. It's freaking great. But like the point is like they just like everything, like Johnny's even down to Johnny's stance in the final fight against Wolf, where he's leaning in, and then this time, unlike the first time where he fights against Daniel and comes in full fledged, he listens to Daniel and he swings back into defense mode, and you can see
Yep.
his feet, bro, and he wins against Wolf the same way Daniel won against him,
Yep.
minus the crane kick, of course, but dude, I mean, just being able to tie elements together like that was just
Well,
unbelievable.
and the other interesting thing, it took my 12-year-old to show me this, but I mean, dude, my 12-year-old he's a fanatic like us. He has watched that series. It's literally on all the time. He rewatches that series. He's probably seen it 8 or 9 times. But one of the things that I found interesting was in the first season, in the first few episodes, he had seen the Karate Kid before, but he couldn't understand why I hated Kreese so much.
Hmm.
I mean, I was just like, oh, see that guy, he's a jerk and he's blah blah, and he just couldn't understand that. And my boys have such really sweet hearts, man. And he would say, well, but that guy probably just went through a lot of stuff, and my son would tell me that. Well, he probably had a hard life. Wasn't he in the military, Dad? And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. Then the show started filling in Kreese and what happened to him as a older teen in the military and how he was brought up in the arts and what happened to him in war. And you start to see all that stuff and you're like, no wonder he was like that.
Yep.
No wonder the guy, and it made me start to think, man, there is a lot of preconceived ideas and a lot of judgments I think we can have that may be squelched or completely diminished if we consider the what ifs of someone's life, because I never know what has gone on in someone's past or what may be going on in their present. I just don't know. And giving people the benefit of the doubt is a powerful motivator for understanding people's shortcomings.
I like that. I think that's really good. And along the same line, um, we might even say the phrase "the past doesn't define you." That is an element that
Yeah,
we learn in the show. And I'll tell you what, like that hit home for me personally, and I know it had to for you because we both have made some terrible mistakes in our past, things we're not proud of, things we would not do again had we relived those moments, but we did. And it's done. And we could live the rest of our lives pretending like those things define us, but they don't have to.
yep,
Um, and I can't stand when people point the finger still today, even in when I'm having these debates online or whatever with some of these Christians that know my past. Well, your past says, but and they bring it up, and I'm like, really? that's you're going to use an ad hominem now. You're going to try to defeat my arguments because of some terrible thing I did in the past. That just shows defeat right there. It shows you don't know how to handle the arguments, and all you can do is point out flaws from the past. My past does not define me.
Nope.
I may have made mistakes, but those mistakes don't define me. I am not that person. And nor should anybody feel like you're that person just because you made those mistakes. Buckle up your pants, get up, and be a different person. Just move forward and do
Yeah. Yeah. Look at Kreese's character,
exactly. Even to the very end, he finally changed.
bro. And I mean, a big dude that you're the scene you brought up between he and Johnny, man. I mean, you could see Kreese's heart was broken.
Oh yeah. Well, even before that scene, it was broken in the parking lot when he tried to reach out to Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
But he didn't push it because as a changed man, see that right there, that scene in the parking lot is what told me that something changed in Kreese. Because in the past, if you didn't accept his outreach, he's going to come at you. And he didn't this time. For the first time, when Johnny didn't accept it, he humbled himself and said, I understand.
That's a good point.
That to me was the moment I realized Kreese was different.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, man. Yeah, but that it and I loved the power of Kreese's changed heart and how that impacted Johnny. The healing that took place in Kreese, the energy from that completely healed Johnny as well.
Yep. Yep. And you see the same kind of story happening. I mean, not to the same degree, but between uh for some reason her names evade me, but
Tori, Samantha,
Daniel's daughter
Samantha,
and the other girl
Tori.
Tori, yeah, they had their outs constantly, but Samantha never stopped reaching out with the soft heart, and eventually Tori came around because of the mercy or the compassion that Samantha had, and then Tori in response had a complete change of heart too.
Yeah,
You see that there happening with,
yeah,
but
yeah.
what a freaking cool twist to see Cobra Kai, bro. I could not have predicted that in a million years from the beginning that Cobra Kai would eventually become the dojo that Daniel would sensei and Johnny would be there and they would both be supporting it as the good studio. Like, what?
Yep,
Never saw that coming, man. That was
yep,
incredible.
yeah.
Wow. That was incredible. And it was believable.
Oh, dude,
That's what was
absolutely.
cool about it. Somehow, some way, it was believable. Like, wow. It was
Yep.
incredible. And they pulled it off in 5 episodes. How did they do that? It's just good
Yeah.
writing, man.
This dude, the writers of that show were fantastic. They
Oh,
really were. I mean, you brought up the tying in from the Karate Kid, all of them, 1 through 4. You brought in how they
1 through 3. The
yeah, you're
fourth
right. You're
one
right.
was
Yeah.
the
Is
next
the
Karate Kid
girl.
that you do
Yeah,
not accept as a part of the series.
I do not. Yeah. So you brought up a great point about how they tied all of that stuff in and even filled in a whole lot of the unknowns that were going on as well.
Hmm.
That even gave the Karate Kid. Jameson and I ended up watching the Karate Kid when the Cobra Kai series ended, and I was just sitting there going, "Wow, man, so much! There's so much more that I understand about what's going on now that I did not. Even the relationship between Johnny and Allie and you think in when you watch a Karate Kid, you think Johnny's just a punk guy who doesn't really care about Allie until the Cobra Kai series comes out and you realize he actually really did care about her. You know what I mean? And so that's why all of that became so. I don't know, man. It was a lot.
And that goes to show another storyline that they developed was that every story has two sides. You know the whole if you and I are looking at the same number, I see the 6 and you see the 9, um, and from Daniel's perspective, which was the perspective of the Karate Kid, we were led to believe the one side of the story, as we've been saying this whole time, that Miyagi-Do is the only right way,
Good and evil.
and Daniel was the hero, whatever. And what you come to discover is, if you look at it from Johnny's perspective, Daniel was actually the villain, because as Johnny says at one point, I forget the exact quote, but he was like, "Here I was, just minding my own business and doing my life, and in comes this twerp of a kid, and he disrupts everything and tries to break in and take my girl." And from his perspective, that's what happened, and so that created the tension. So I don't, from Johnny's perspective, he wasn't actually trying to create problems, but here comes this guy, and he's causing problems. So you see the story from both sides, and if you're willing to consider both sides, there's kind of a happy medium, and that's what they find in the end is, yeah, I could have been a better guy. Yeah, I could have been a better guy. Okay, hug it out, and that's it. They could have figured that out 30 years earlier, but but who knew? But at least
Yeah.
they need to, because they were still going to look like 12-year-olds at 40 years old. So that was good.
Yeah, dude, and they do. God, man, it's really.
Dude, especially Ralph, man. What the heck is he
I
drinking?
know, bro.
Bro, he just
I
doesn't
don't
age.
understand.
He doesn't. I thought Tom Cruise didn't age, but Ralph is like I don't even think he's gone through puberty yet.
Nope, I don't think so either,
Unbelievable.
man. Nope. His balls have not dropped. That dude is just, yeah, it's pretty interesting, man.
My goodness. Another thing we can learn from the show is that you need to let go of the past. Like that's a big thing that we learn is like you can hold on to the grudge, and Johnny did for years, and look what it turned him into, a big drunkard. And that's what he was walking around town, doing nothing with his life. And finally, when he starts to let go of the past, is when he starts to become a man again and develop himself and become somebody better. Um, Daniel, struggles to find balance, in his life, as we found in his trying to run a business and trying to do martial arts and trying to manage a family, and he just can't seem to do it, and so we see all these struggles that these guys are having. And I see something in your eyes. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, because one of the biggest things to me about that side of it was the indoctrination of the family by Daniel into his way of thinking, and how they followed what he said and just believed what he said without question. But then what you start to see is a in Daniel, you begin to see a pretty subtle self-righteousness, and his family starts to see it first. His wife starts to bring it up. She even tells him, "You're being pretty self-righteous right now."
Mhm.
His daughter starts to become friends with Tori and Robbie when Robbie leaves and goes to Cobra Kai. She begins to see the merit in another way of thinking that brings the fuller picture that she did not know before. And that begins to cause issues between her and her dad because her dad will not relent. And he is just dumbfounded that she is not towing the line of his indoctrination
Yep.
because she starts to think for herself. And you see that whole and Samantha was super self-righteous in the beginning,
In the beginning, yes.
and everybody knew it. But then she starts to go, okay, maybe I need to ease up on this. And she starts to see things, especially with her friendship with Tori, which begins to bring that balance because she begins to see a different way of thinking. That to me was really interesting. The idea of indoctrinating children into a way of thinking and how that impacts their life socially, mentally, emotionally.
Bro, when you talk about that, you know who comes to mind from the show? Axel, the main captain of Wolf's team.
Yep.
Bro, you remember the scene where Wolf's training him and he always beating him. He's like, "You've been doing this since you were a child, and I've been teaching you." The dude was completely indoctrinated to know only one way of life, and that's the way he was. And that dude, Axel, in his somehow himself, he overcame it, because I think ultimately because of the compassion of Amanda, right?
Samantha.
Samantha, thank you, Samantha. Um, and eventually he starts to see something's wrong here, something's off, And he
Yep.
refuses to continue that sort of living and says, I'm going to change. I don't need to live this way. And he stands up to Wolf. Bro, that scene when he got in Wolf's face and then literally
Yep.
turned his back to Wolf and walked away slowly, and Wolf did nothing. Like, I was just like, what? That was incredible. Like, he overcame his own indoctrination that he had since he was a kid. And that reminded me of, people who escaped Christianity. I'm telling you, man, like, to me, that was like, I kept thinking, wow, we did that.
Yep. Well, and he even says he says something like, you're a disgraceful student. And he looks at him, he says, it was a disgrace to be your student.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Because he realizes, man, this is not right. What you have done to me is
Right,
not right.
right. Yep. Yep, absolutely. And then Wolf falls to his own demise just in the same way that he was training. It was incredible.
Yep.
And then so another thing, so there was this whole moment, not just a scene, it was kind of a whole storyline that developed for a little while in the show. And in my mind, so I'm going to summarize it by saying, don't jump to conclusions. Uh, it was the whole series of scenes that developed between Anthony, which I think is the name of Daniel's son, right? Anthony?
Yes.
Yeah. And his friend, what was the kid that came back? Everybody was against him, and they finally bring him back, and then he wins, and he gives the finger to Silver. He goes like this.
Oh, the black kid?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What was his name?
Um,
I goodness,
Man, Jameson would know.
it's not
I'll
coming to
text
me,
him real
but
quick.
it's okay if you can't find. It's not a big deal. But do you remember the whole diarrhea thing where they put X-Lax
Yes,
in
yes.
in his thing, and he lost the He didn't go to the competition because of the Saikai Taikai because
That
everybody
girl put
the girl put it in, but everybody thought Anthony did, and he thought Anthony did, and the mom thought Anthony, and Danny thought everybody's blamed Anthony because they were having issues, and he's like, I didn't do it. So I guess there's two lessons to be learned here. Number one is, the sad thing is once you make enough mistakes, you become marked, and everybody thinks you do stuff. It's sad, but it's reality. It shouldn't be like that. You should actually always try
Kenny.
to come to conclusions, rationally rather than just jumping to them. But that was kind of Anthony's demise, is he had already made several mistakes, and so everybody's assumed it. But the black kid, God, did you get
Kenny.
Kenny? Yes, thank you, Kenny. Yes, yes. So Kenny, assumed it too, and then they had this big, and they were best friends. But
I
then they had
know.
a big fallout because of it, and like, I mean, I'm glad that they resolved it at the end and everything worked out. But like, dude, that's a big problem when you jump to conclusions. You're likely to mess up relationships because you don't really know, like, why just assume the worst in somebody. Why don't you try to figure out what's going, like, I can tell you, kind of a parallel to that if I were to do it for myself as an atheist now. I think most Christians think the worst in me right now that knew me from my past. They think all you care about is destroying lives. You're trying to turn people away from God. You're just an evil person now. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to turn people away from God. If I was trying to turn people away from God, that would assume I believed God exists. No, I'm not trying to turn people away from God. I'm not some horrible person that's just out to ruin you and take away your faith in a real being. I'm trying to help you see that you believe in something that doesn't exist. Like, so my motivation is good, it's pure, but you can't see that if you're jumping to conclusions. You have to actually be willing to consider what I'm saying rather than just assuming the worst in me. And that is why I wrote my book, How to Kill God the Easy Way. And I try to encourage people when they come at me, like, I'm like, look, just read the book. I just read the book, and then you'll actually know what I'm saying, where I'm coming from. No, I don't need to read the book. You keep your book. Well, I mean, okay. So if you're going to jump to that conclusion, and you're going to be like Kenny was, and that's just going to be the end of it, and you're going to have destroyed the relationship. I'm not the one destroying the relationship. I'm actually just talking to you about something I think is real and something I think is true, and you refuse to consider it, and instead tell me that I'm an evil person. You follow what I'm saying? Like this, just yeah,
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I mean, it's just the interesting thing about that worldview, and I don't care what anybody says. I will tell them I believe they are wrong and I know that I'm right in this. that view demands it actually demands that they ostracize you and judge you and condemn you and feel superior to you. It demands it.
Yes.
And so, I always like to say doctrine drives actions. Whatever your doctrine is, it drives your actions. And it is no wonder that they act that way because they are cultivated to act that way because that is what they think. There is a Man, there is such a horrific condescension within Christianity that it's out of everything that I have dealt with, it's probably one of the worst things. I can deal with someone saying you're an asshole and you're a God hater, and I can deal with that because that tells me someone's very fearful. That stuff comes from fear. But condescension is an arrogance that, man, I cannot stand it. Like when we got publicly excommunicated from that church for my views on eschatology that I had never talked about ever, um, I will never forget sitting in a Starbucks with a buddy of mine, and I think I've told you this story. I think I wrote about it in my book. I can't remember. And that guy walked by and put his hand on my shoulder. A guy that I had, been friends with at the church, and he said, "My wife and I are praying for you." And dude, I grabbed his hand and held on to it. And I looked at that guy in the face and I said, "What exactly are you praying for?" And he could not answer me because the truth is he wasn't praying at all. And he wasn't going to pray for me. It was just a platitude. And it was a form of condescension to say, "I am superior to you, you poor deceived soul."
Yep.
And I just thought, you know, if I were to sit you down right now with our Bibles and open, and I still carry mine, dude. I still have my Bible in my backpack. And we were to open up our Bibles and I started asking you some questions, within 10 minutes, you would want to run. You would want to get away from that conversation as quickly as possible because you would realize you don't know much of anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
None.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you would condescend to me and tell me that you are praying for me for what?
Yeah, dude, no, I get it. Along the same lines, like one of the things that I see happen all the time is Christians feel no problem coming on to any of our posts and make their comments and tell you how you're wrong.
But
And
how dare you?
you make a little challenging comment in there, like, just leave me alone. I just love God. Why are you attacking me? I'm like, are you serious right now? You come on my freaking posts all the time, but I'm attacking you because
The
I'm
Bible
challenging you.
says we'll be persecuted for our faith.
It just drives me crazy. But the Christian way is strike hard, strike first, no mercy, sir. And on that note, we have to end because we are 10 minutes over, but we will pick up again next week on whatever it is we're going to talk about. Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody, for Cobra Kai Week. Dustin Sun, I'll see you next week, bro.